everyone. We have Professor Sheth here. He'll be giving us a talk on calibration of hot wire probe in heated flows and effect of temperature on isotropic turbulence. Dr. U.S. Premananda Sheth graduated from IIT Madras in 1967, obtaining his BTech degree in mechanical engineering and also MTech and PhD from IIT Madras. Dr. Sheth pursued teaching and research career at IIT Madras. Dr. Sheth's major area of scientific interest includes combustion engineering, thermodynamics and propulsion. He taught thermodynamics to undergraduates and fundamentals of combustion and combustion technology to PG students, and is ranked as a best teacher based on the institute's teacher course feedback. Dr. Sheth carried out research on premix combustion, flame stabilization, swell combustion, control of pollutant emission and noise from burner flames, and also on topics related to utilization of solar energy. He guided several PhDs and MS scholars and also supervised about 53 MTech students and 52 BTech students. Dr. Sheth has made a significant contribution to combustion community as he carried out combustion research in especially swill burn burners. He also gave seminars at several academic institutions. For instance, he was called at KTH, and he has also even guided some PhD candidates in, he has also taken a course for the PhD PhD candidates at KTH. And he has received a prestigious award called Sir C.V. Raman Award for his best paper titled Combustion Noise of LPG Free Jet Flames Issuing from a Nozzle Mix Well Burners. And it was contributed to Journal of Acoustic Society of India. Now I call Professor Sheth to take over the session. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. I'm very happy to be here. It's more like more than homecoming. I'd been here long, and then I was invited to give a talk. I readily agreed because this has been one of the most interesting topics. One of the most interesting topics for me. I did work on hot wire anemometer towards my PhD work in Salford University, UK. Then on return here also I guided 2 PhDs on turbulent combustion, and the research scholars had to do a lot of measurements. So it is like with great pleasure I accepted this invitation, and I'd be very happy to share my experience with you on these measurements, and any doubts regarding the bulk construction of the facilities towards the calibration of the hot wire anemometer. Now, before I go into the topic, I will highlight how I intend covering this talk. First, I will talk about this general the setup what we use, and the CTA bridge what was constructed here. It was a custom built hot wire bridge with signal conditioner. In those days in IIT, everybody was using hot wire anemometer. There's such a scarcity, we had to wait sometimes to borrow them from the neighboring lab. So we thought as well we can try this exercise. And at that time, Professor had just TS had come from Kanpur IIT, and he had an algorithm on FFT. You would have heard about that yesterday. I think he talked about how to handle this time series of hot wire signal, and then convert that into digitize that, and carry out the statistical analysis, a whole lot of it, measuring the RMS value of the velocity fluctuations, and converting time series to on the frequency domain, leading to the construction of the spectral density, the spectrum, energy spectra of these signals. And that led me to make use of that bridge to deduce hot wire measurements and just have all this data on time scale, length scales and so on. In fact, we try to relate the signal, the result obtained from the signal analysis time domain, that is autocorrelation, and using Taylor hypothesis of then from the time scale we went to the spatial scale, scale, and the so called this length scale could be also be reduced from that. Then other possibility is directly coming from the spectrum, because we have the facility to have the spectrum, and from spectrum this length scale can be reduced. So with that motivation, we were very happy to try this building of a hotwire bridge, and have it as a unit to, as a trial, and then we compared the results of that with the Dantac hotwire anemometer, and the results was very excellent. So cost wise it is very effective. It was less than about less than a lakh of rupees, which the commercial unit would cost at that time about 6 times or 8 times higher. So this is the thing what we built about 2 decades ago, nearly 2 decades ago, as part of one of the scholars' PhD work. And then I will explain the calibration technique what we adopted. It was a heated flow, because we wanted to relate the turbulence effects on the premixed flames with the goal to relate the effect of temperature on burning velocity. So we wanted this data, turbulence data, as a function of temperature, flow temperature. So hence the interest. So we had to make the calibration in heated flow. Of course, it is a very difficult task to achieve the steady state conditions and control the parameters, flow parameters, such that you can vary the Reynolds number and then vary the temperature given the same Reynolds number and so on. That exercise we had to do, and then the measured data what we obtained, the intensity of turbulence, the length scales of turbulence, and the spectral information as a function of temperature we analyzed nicely, and that result I will do it as the last but one item here. And then before I begin with these top 4 topics, I would like to show you some of the interesting the Schlieren pictures of flames, turbulent premixed flames, where you could really see the influence of turbulence on the flame structure, which gives a lot of information, so that our goal to deduce appropriate models for predicting the burning rate, turbulent burning velocity, is guided by these flame pictures, which in short also tells us what turbulence does on flame, how it changes the structure. So this is not part of the main lecture. In fact, I just show you the pictures first and quickly move on to the main topic like this. Am I speaking very fast? It's just introduction, and if you have any doubt you can stop me and I will explain further. So with that motivation of having to measure accurately the turbulence parameters, we ventured to build a hotwire anemometer ourselves and obtain the results. Also, this was part of the PhD work of the 2 scholars, one of the scholars, and prior to his work, the other scholar also worked with the, it was then called as the DISA anemometer, then it became Dantac. So it went through a lot of changes. So these results what we obtained was comparable accuracy wise with the commercial Dantac equipment what was available with us in IIT at that time, but everybody was interested in doing such measurements in fluid mechanics, aerospace, aeronautical engineering here, mechanical and so on. So now I will go to those flame pictures. This is just a structure of flame. This ordinary turbulent premixed flame, you are very familiar with the Bunsen burner, no? Bunsen burner. So if you try to adjust the flow rate what goes through the hole in, that control is there now, a small ring. So if you try to close it completely, what happens? So you get a diffusion flame, because only the air jet comes from bottom, gas jet, and then this simply comes out, it cannot enter any air, right. And as it emerges from the burner mouth, it enters air and you get a so called diffusion flame. But if allow air to enter the Bunsen burner controlling the ring, you get a kind of a similar small flame there like this. But it is a laboratory turbulent flame here, LPG air flame, Reynolds number 4616 and stoichiometric flame actually. You see the here the so called the turbulent flame brush we call it, right. It has certain finite volume there. In laminar flame it is straight, you get a sharp very flat flame surface. So turbulence does a lot of action on this flame surface. In fact, flame flow interaction you could really it is so complex, and turbulence affects it does wonders on that. It increases the burning rate. The flame becomes very compact, it becomes high intensity flame. What is meant by high intensity flame? Energy released per unit volume. Energy released, of course it is a rate of energy release, but if it is done in short volume, smaller volume, it becomes the high intensity flames. So turbulent flames are really more compact, and unlike the diffusion flames are very tall, and then they also serve a lot of other intended needs, like they emit radiation, heat transfer properties are excellent for that. If you want to have the flame heat transfer from flame to the surroundings like that. But premixed flame won't radiate heat, they intensely release heat being very compact, and it has its own application, right. So these are technical reasons why people go for premixing. There are again dangers, of course flashback, lot of things are there, and if you go to very extremely lean mixtures, you tend to save fuel conservation is there, but it becomes unstable. It tends to be, because burning velocity, if lean flames are smaller, it leads to instabilities. You would have heard in your aero department lot of work on combustion instabilities. I think Professor Sujit is doing a lot of work in that direction. So lean flame has other problem there like this. So now what is the role of this turbulence now? We have to understand now, because we are measuring turbulence parameters, intensity of turbulence and length scales. As you know, turbulent flow is very complex in nature. It has UV, W component, and it becomes anisotropic, because in each the fluctuations have no preference. It's random. At the same time, it is reproducible. Intermittency is there, and we have to characterize the flow with appropriate parameters. How to do that? Statistical description you can give, or you can go to the classical theory of mixing length theory, or Prandtl's mixing length theory. And after all, what is the mixing length? Then you think about the eddies. Okay, you can say turbulent flow is nothing but a flow of fluctuating eddies of different sizes and different angular velocities. Eddies have a lot of meaning. They can fluctuate, we can say, they can spin, then there is a vorticity in it. It's a very complicated picture you can give. But if you want to relate these parameters on something out of interest to you, that is in and out, here you put turbulence and it increases the burning rate. I am interested in that now, how to relate that one now. In some cases in swirl combustion, we also tend to release, produce compact flames, with a small flame, and then intensely blue it becomes, because of the lot of mixing is involved there. And who causes this mixing? It's all the eddies, small dissipative eddies. And you would have heard yesterday a lot of description about Taylor microscale, Kolmogorov microscale. Ultimately, to produce turbulence now, we have to give some energy, right? So kinetic energy is imparted to the eddies. How it happens now, like mixing of the two jets, entrainment we can cause, or several ways of generating turbulence is there. There are several methods of generating turbulence, right? So the structure becomes very complicated if it tends to become what is called a non-isotropic. If you want a very orderly generated turbulence, we have to think of isotropic turbulence. That means given at any plane there, if you compare the flow fluctuation in say consider axisymmetric situation, flow axisymmetric, then the u component will be same as v component, right, for that plane as far as that plane is concerned now. Of course, if you go to the further downstream, right, z direction, you can say an axial direction downward, this radial direction. So, radial and here everywhere it is same, this component is same, u and v are same, but if you go to z direction, then there will be decay of turbulence as you go away from the burner, from the plane where turbulence is generated, there is a decay, and then turbulence level comes down, and the driving force for that is now, in case of grid generated turbulence, you get wire meshes or perforated discs, as air medium flows through that, many jets are produced, and jets coalesce, mix, and then produce turbulence. So, in each description becomes very complicated, so we go for the isotropic turbulence if you want to relate its effect on the other results what you are interested in, like in the premixed combustion burning velocity, like this, right. So, through two things are very important to us: one, large eddy size, large scale of turbulence, and small scale of turbulence, smallest called Kolmogorov, and in between there is a cascade between the two, that is called what is called as the Taylor microscale here, right. So, we are able to measure them by the hot wire anemometer by several techniques here, and I will look at that measurements. And now before going to that, let us look at this structure here. See, this is a Schlieren flame image. I did it for my work long time ago. That was the work there. See, this is 5000 Reynolds number, and this is 15,000. See, it's 3 times more flow here. Then you have this turbulence parameter. I measured the turbulence now. Such a structure like that, it can be flame, or it can be other situation like mixing. At one locally mixing takes place, and then the mixing intensity decreases as you go away from the source of turbulence, like this. In this case, the overall structure is like this, but how will I relate turbulence effect on that in this particular case? So, we generate turbulence at the burner mouth here, okay, and then the flame now here, this one cone here, fortunate for those people who work in this area, see, it does not, the turbulence is preserved in the potential core. See, from outside turbulence is not able to come inside, because there is a barrier against that, the so called the reaction of the reaction zone will not allow outside to come inside. Inside turbulence is there, that causes its action on the flame front. So, the flame front gets wrinkled here. Wrinkled means the eddies will come and bombard the flame surface, they get undulations, and it becomes wrinkled here. So, that can happen here, that is characterized in this research by the parameter intensity of turbulence, u prime, RMS value of velocity fluctuations. So, we go for isotropic turbulence, simple case. So, I am sure at that plane of the burner mouth, whatever I have generated, I know it is well defined, it is isotropic, and further downstream there may be decay, no, that is always there. Then the overall effect of that structure is to wrinkle the plane if turbulence is weak. When you say weak turbulence, I have to compare with something, okay, reference. The reference is itself is that property called the burning velocity, laminar burning velocity. How many of you are here in aerospace background? Aerospace here? Mechanical, all of you are mechanical, right. So, you would learn all these things, burning velocity of premixed system. It is a velocity with which a flame front moves it propagates. A very simple example is, suppose your long tube, imagine, is filled with combustible mixtures means it should be within the flammability limits. So, if you have a small spark at the end, you can generate a flame front, laminar flame front, or you call it a flame kernel. It develops into flame sheet, it will slowly propagate. It will move with the speed, that is called as burning velocity of flame speed, like that. So, the reference here is the fluctuation, RMS value of velocity we can compare with the SL, and if that is small, it is called weak turbulence as far as this flame is concerned, right. And then we need another thing, that is called the another ratio, eta by L. Eta is the Kolmogorov scale, L is the macro scale of turbulence. the large eddy size and small eddy. So, when we talk about the wrinkling here, we are interested in looking at the size of the wrinkles. Depends on the bombardment of these eddies, which you can imagine as a spherical ball. Imagine it has a shape, spherical ball. You imagine it will cause movement of the flame front. So, here in this case it is eta by L is large here. So, sorry, I made a confusion for you. This L is not because I am used to that symbol. It is actually called as the delta L, flame front thickness actually. It's flame front thickness. Sorry, right? It is, I forgot to put that symbol. Eta by L later on has a great significance. Ratio of Kolmogorov scale to the macro scale. It is a great deal of significance. It talks about the dissipative nature of a flow there. It is delta L. So, if the size of the eddies is large in comparison to the thickness of the flame, it causes the undulation on the flame surface, this one. So, this is large there. So, this is the story of the turbulence effect on the reaction, and that is explained by the, so there are several theories, we are not going to do that. Wrinkled laminar flame theory, they are not of concern to this for this talk, but I only elaborated this one to see how important is this length scale turbulence in this case, which you are measuring, and later on the magnitude of these scales we have to compare with the size of this flame front thickness. So, that ratio is 2.9 is very high, the ratio is high, so it wrinkles there. So, delta flame front thickness is very difficult to evaluate. By measurements you have to take a flame picture and you have to define the boundary for that. One side is unburnt, other side is burnt side, and in case of laminar it is very easy, it is very bright and it is demarcated very easily, whereas in diffused combustion it becomes very difficult. Now, see the other one is very interesting. This is U prime by SL is large, turbulence becomes stronger there, and then at the same time here eta by delta L becomes less than 1, means eddy size is larger than that, comparable to that. So, that leads to the extended reaction zone. Of course, this is the transition actually. In fact, it is called as weak for U prime by SL less than 2. Okay, there are several criterion, but it is something like tending to become extended reaction. The eddies, how they combust depends on their sizes and fluctuations. It just gets something like convoluted. At the same time, presents the wrinkled character. For instance, what goes on in the IC engine, for instance, internal combustion engine, petrol engine, flame propagation takes place like this. So, the engine people are very much interested in turbulence measurements, because they want to know as the piston moves up and down, right, the turbulence is created there, right. How to characterize that turbulence parameter there inside. So, for them there is one driving force is the RPM. Okay, here we have a flow velocity. So, the RPM they relate it, to the fluctuating component. There is something like they do the scaling. The fluctuating velocity is proportional to RPM. There are some empirical relations are built up. So, then they want to know the size of the eddy. So, by now you would have heard several theories of turbulence. What is the size of the eddy? Suppose you have a small diameter and a large diameter, flow comes from that. In which case eddy size is larger or smaller, larger. Flow comes from a small orifice or a pipe of smaller diameter, another one is same flow comes with a larger diameter. Let us say Reynolds number is same as a similarity criterion. Which flow carries larger eddy sizes? Larger. So, eddy has a boundary, which is the maximum limit is the boundary of the constraint through which it is guided, flow is guided. So, larger. So, for IC engine people the size of the piston is a measure of the large eddy size. Okay. So, now they want to know how to know the location where the maximum dissipation can take place, especially in case of diesel engine. A diesel engine, it is sprayed there, but before that there are local regions where there could be intensely dissipative eddies can be there. So, if the injection is angled, the fuel, readily it mixes with the thing and spontaneously it gets ignited because temperature is very high. eddies are made available due to their dissipative actions, and at that spot if the fuel is sprayed there, the diesel, instantly it gets mixed, and then moment it attains the auto ignition, it just combusts. So these are the technical importance of these turbulence I am telling. So measurement is very important because they want to do the scaling there, and those people very easily can predict what is happening there without going through the rigor of all these theories of turbulence. They all go by the empirical relations, simple empirical relations are there. So those parameters are now like your Eddy-Sai L or Kolmogorov scale ratios, and they define what is the turbulence Reynolds numbers. Just like your flow Reynolds number, turbulence Reynolds numbers are defined, given by mu prime RMS value velocity fluctuation into length scale divided by the viscosity, kinematic viscosity, like that. So with this scenario, now I will stop the explaining the combustion information. It is very important, not only combustion, in any situation like mixing studies. And eddies now you are not able to see in the flow, but you need a flow visualization technique. You are familiar, no? Most of you are familiar how the flows are visualized. The techniques are there. Like when the speed of the flow is small, it is very easy to see the eddy structure. If the speed is large, then it is very difficult. So gas turbine combustion models, what happens to the zones where the flame can get stabilized. It can get stabilized in what is known as recirculation zone, flame stabilization. These are theories. Narrow people, mechanically, all of you should know, appreciate this point. Flame anchoring we call it. There again the turbulence plays a great role. If the dissipative action is so fast, then flame cannot sustain there. The flame gets blown out. It leads to extinction because the flame, they say, gets quenched aerodynamically, because flame is there, but flame is produced by the flow, and the flow causes what is called as the gradients. The gradients are very important. They call it as a big theory, strain rate they call it. A simple theory for you is the gradient is called as the du by dy. Understood, no? Velocity gradient, du by dy. Where you come across this ratio, du by dy? Huh? Pardon? Flow through pipe, du by dy, what it signifies? Shear stress. The gradients are very important. What are the unit for gradients? Du by dy, 1 by second. So gradients. So the flow gradients, you have to compare with the gradient what is coming due to combustion. There again a time scale they call it as. The inverse of that will give you a time. You can call the flow time and the reaction time. Inverse of this gradient du by dy. So these again will form what is called as ratios, non-dimensional ratios. They also characterize the effect of turbulence on the phenomena. So effect of turbulence on flame phenomena is of concern for combustion people involved in development of the high duty and stable systems. So in any operation here, one of the important thing is the stability, flame stability. It should operate reliably without failure. So the numbers are defined like this by the non-dimensional number, which involve the parameters due to flow turbulence and parameter due to chemistry given by the burning velocity properties of the mixture. Two things are there, laminar burning velocity and the flame front thickness. So that I will just show one quickly. These are all just pictures, we do just they look nice. See these are the premixed flames of the magnitude occurring similar to those in afterburner systems. Afterburner you heard, no? Gas turbine combustion, afterburners. In afterburner systems you add more fuel because a lot of oxygen is available there. So you can put some fuel and burn and get extra thrust due to that after burning. In after burning similar type of configuration takes place. So the spreading of the angle, flame spreading, very critical. Turbulence dictates these angles actually. They cannot come and touch the combustor wall, finished. Locally if it is exposed, it touches the thing, hot spot will take place. That's a great risk is there. So whole flame should be well within the confined walls. So turbulence also is important to know what is the spreading angle of these flame systems. Depends on, my bias of this talk is on previous combustion. Similarly, you can think of other situations there, but the role of turbulence is to be analyzed in any engineering problems. So these are all pictures done in UK, Cranfield University at that time, the 1966. They are all Schlieren pictures actually. See the eddy size, the effect is there, large eddy is doing. That means essentially low speed flow. The low speed flow as low as 9.1 meters per second. When it goes to the high speed flow of the order of 66.5 meters per second, stoichiometric flame, you see the eddy structure, they all become small. There is intensely burning flame actually, burning rate is very high, and we want to release energy, large amount of energy per unit time, right. So for our intended purpose, that energy should come out, from the fuel energy should come out as a thermal energy, chemical energy should come out as thermal energy, and the process is the flame process, assisted by other parameters, fuel richness, flow, all that thing. Okay. So with that now, I think I come to the next one. This is in general, the entire scenario is now shown by in one diagram where the role of turbulence parameters are there here. See here, the numbers, eddy time, eddy life time, then chemical time, flame front thickness, and then Kolmogorov time scale, and the ratio of the two, Dahm-Kohler, all that numbers are there. We will skip that, that is not important. Now we come to this thing. You understood now the importance of turbulence. It might have looked like a story, but the underlying fact is the simple thing, intensity of turbulence, eddy size, large eddy size, and the small eddy size, and Kolmogorov, they all help us in visualizing what happens, how the process is governed by these values. Okay, right. Now we come to this. This is the hardware we built, custom built bridge here. This was the one. Hotwire probe was same as Dantag probe was used. That was iridium. It's written here. Platinum rhodium wire, 6 ohm wire with that temperature coefficient of resistance being that. It can the hotness of the flow, it can go up to 800 at maximum limit. In all this hot wire probe, important thing is the wire is supported by this one guiding wall, the guiding supports, and some high temperature resisting epoxy, some glue is held there, it is welded, and that whole thing is there. So the limitation is the maximum temperature what the probe can support. So in our work here, the scholar wanted to measure the turbulence in our lab as per the facility available. He wanted to go up to 500 Kelvin. That is delta T, temperature difference with respect to ambient, and that being of the order of 200 degrees centigrade. And this probe matched very well. You remember when you operate the flow probe, you have to give a ratio called as the overheating ratio. The probe temperature maximum you have to set it first in order to have the high sensitivity. The frequency response should be good. So higher the temperature of the medium, the probe should be support that application. So accordingly you have to select proper probe there. So this was used there, and the signal CTA bridge, we went for the constant temperature anemometer, which has high frequency response. That had a facility to have the control of gain on the RMS value fluctuations, and is through a signal conditioner it is sent to analog to digital card. In those days it was a very great fascination to buy them and have it on your PC. Like this was a simple Pentium 3 PC, it was 386 at that time, and the card was inside this one, and then it could receive the DC component of the signal as well as the AC component, amplified or without amplification for further processing. Software was written for that effective, and then the computer analyzed, stored the hot wire signal, then it was later digitized, and in the digital form it was stored actually as time series. The digital values were stored there, and then statistical analysis was made for measuring the RMS value of fluctuations, root mean square value of the fluctuation. That means amplitude of the signal is squared, averaged, and then taken root. Root mean square. So that could be, computer could do it. Now these are all the signal coming from electrical signal. We want to measure it on the other, velocity of fluctuation, velocity, but convert electrical to mechanical, it should come. So we need a calibrating factor. So it's called hot wire calibration. We need to know that constant, calibration constant. That's precisely the point in which we talk much about hot wire anemometer calibration. And hot wire is very complicated, though it is simple in principle, it is extremely complicated because the output what comes from the bridge, depending on its mode of operation, either as a CTA or constant temperature or constant current anemometer, the output what comes out from that depends on the property of the probe itself, property of the flow medium, and the geometry of your probe. King's law, you know, famous King's law. It related the voltage output to the velocity, and King's law has two constants in that, three constants. One is the no flow velocity voltage output, zero velocity voltage output without flow. Another is a constant which talks about these effect of property of the medium, its property of the probe itself, and the geometry, that is called that one constant. Then exponent is there. There is the cooling, how much cooling takes place. Heat transfer is independent of the temperature difference in fact, but it depends on several other factors, the cooling rate. With that now heat transfer depends on the temperature difference there, that one. So though that can be calculated in terms of your correlations, Nusselt number in terms of Reynolds number and Prandtl number, you can evaluate that, and that can be a technique to solve this calibration problem. Sometimes in the flow may fluctuate. There may be, we want to measure velocity fluctuations. In heated flow there may be temperature fluctuations. So the relation, voltage velocity relation now is complicated by the additional parameter there. So in order to eliminate that effect, okay, then we need to have special circuits to compensate for that, or the corrections may be, factors may be introduced. All these are discussed, and a lot of literature is available on that. So depending on your need, you can apply that correction. So we went for a general procedure which is free from all these botherations, a very classical approach but very time consuming, but we made ourselves comfortable so that in the event of the probe failure we could easily do the calibration quickly. That was possible. The technique we evolved is so that the scholar had to know the time frame he has to finish the PhD. So if the probe breaks several times, then it is very difficult. So we also made an arrangement for doing that calibration quickly. So that technique of calibration we will elaborate now. Next one. So instrumentation, as you see, the hot wire bridge, then the probe hot wire bridge and signal conditioner and the PC, all that thing is there, and then your software to convert to analyze the time series, digital time series, all is there. And there are certain approaches to the design of these this one analyzing system, data acquisition system. Before it would the signal should be the hot wire signal should be able to it should be handled by your data acquisition system. So there is something known as this. You should spend a lot of time on these ideas here. For instance, the sampling time and the sampling rate, the two things are very important. Sampling time and sampling rate. One is to handle the high frequency component, one is to not to neglect the low component signals. So these two things are very, very important. And then the overall frequency response of your data acquisition system, it had in our system, it can go up to 100 kilohertz, but we never ever want that range, because all turbulence maximum fluctuations we will be able to make within what is your guess turbulence signal, how high should be the frequency range to handle a good turbulent signal. We can manage up to, guess now, 10K, 20K kilohertz. Huh? Yeah, 50 is upper hand. In fact, they say if you expect turbulence to have a coverage of certain frequency range, you should give a coverage of twice the range, at least adequate. Twice the range should be sufficient for you, right? So it was more than sufficient for our purpose here, 0 to 100, this one kilohertz. So now we come to the hardware part of it. Electronics is over. One way is to do accurate measurements, means you should have large section where you can put the probe comfortably, size of the probe, right? And in our work here, this was a laboratory scale measurement, and we have to obtain this flame on the top of it here. This flame, what you saw, you burn our mouth, your flame will come there. At that point, we have to get the required level of turbulence, so that we can at least see something. You can either say that it is a weak turbulence or a strong turbulence in our own definition according to that. So this is the setup, and when you do the calibration, actually there should not be any turbulent fluctuation initially in the flow. It should be as far as possible zero, calm flow. But as Reynolds number increases, what happens now? There will be the instability of the associated with the laminar sublayer near the wall, they tend to generate the instabilities. At least we are fortunate, we have got a turbulent core. You got it? Depending on, you can suppress those instabilities by taking a large contraction ratio nozzle. You understand what is meant by large contraction? The inlet dimension and the outlet area divided by the inlet area. That's called contraction ratio. So if you give a large contraction ratio of the order of ideally 25 actually. So if you want to have a 1 inch diameter here at the outlet here, this should be 5 inches, 5 square, and this is 1 inch square. 25:1 ratio is very ideal, right? But then the burner becomes bigger, and 1 inch itself is big because we want to have the metering facility. You have to meter the flow, meter the fuel. How will you now? You talk about what type of metering you do? Mass flow. You got a mass flow meters, right? How you meter the flow? Flow rate. How will you meter it? Your mechanical measurements. Rotameter, one thing. Then I'm making like a classroom. Don't mind. This is a seminar, but I'm just probing you. So you have rotameters, orifice flow meters, Venturi, nozzles. Now mass flow meters are there, very easy to do it. The bigger the flow you have to handle it, you have to go for your conventional thing like orifice plates, like that thing, and you have to make the flow constant. You should not vary with time or decay. You should be able to maintain the flow. That's also another thing. The scholar's headache, not scholar's headache, everybody's headache. See, the guide also will be very upset if you are not able to do the experiment properly. You won't get results, you get some noise. Again you have to repeat it. So at least do something properly, good result when which you have a lot of confidence. That's I have controlled the flow, it is steady. But anyway you are waiting for steady state, right? So when you make the variation there, you should wait for steady state. So flow metering is there. So it was like 1 inch, the diameter was 19 point, that's the 3/4 of an inch. Still we are in British, those are the pipes are coming in inches now. That was a 3/4 of an inch, 19 millimeter. So in that now to calibrate, first of all you design it, so we have to have a diffuser section, so the velocity reduces, and the calming screens are put, calming screens with the fine meshes. If you put fine meshes, the turbulence level goes down. How? Because eddy sizes are broken with smaller ones, but velocity is not there. So it's calmed down, and then you have reasonably high contraction ratio. It's not very big. It is actually 6.9 into 1. It is not very much, but we cannot help it. Then if you want to generate turbulence, you can put the perforated plates there. Meshes or perforated plates are ideal thing to generate the turbulence, isotropic turbulence. The isotropic turbulence is achieved after a certain settling distance. Initially the small jets created by the the pressure drop occurring as the flow passes through the meshes or orifice or meshes or the perforated plates, like then turbulence is created, generated and then settled. There are a lot of work going, reported work is there. I have mentioned one my notes there. We will give you some correlations to tell you at what distance isotropy settles in. So, in such work, if you want to measure isotopic turbulence, settling distance of 10 mesh lengths, mesh means it is an opening, aperture in relation to the overall. Some people will specify the distance in terms of mesh length, some give in terms of wire diameter. So, that will come next slide. So, depending on that, your design or choose the appropriate the mesh or turbulent generating grid, you can call it, that is generated, and then isotropic turbulence you can achieve there. And in our case, the flame is achieved at the burner mouth there. So, now at the burner mouth you have to put hot wire probe, then your flow sensing device. What is the flow sensing device? Actual classical. You have to measure the flow, pitot tube. You can't put a big commercial pitot tube bought elsewhere. You know that would at least have 3 or 4 mm, 3 mm diameter when a static hole and pitot total hole and then the static hole. So, in our case we went for a locally made pitot tube. How you make the pitot tube? Hypodermic needle. You can buy a hypodermic needle, long one, and nicely bend it, and we made a pitot tube for that. Pitot tube. So, that pitot tube had a diameter of 1 millimeter diameter. Pitot tube, right? The standard ones are there. So, one pitot tube will come there. Your hot wire probe will come there, and then in this case heated flow you have to put a thermocouple, calibrated thermocouple, copper constant we use there. So, this is the arrangement, and this is the traversing, see here, this is the one, looks very old fashioned. So, one traversing apparatus, the two are held with some small gaps. If they are brought so close, what happens now? There will be interference effect. Flow you should sense the true flow. So, in our case thermocouple, pitot tube and the hot wire, 3 are there. So, the best way of aligning them is to have it at equidistance from the axis. What is the philosophy behind that? 3 things are there. You can't arbitrarily put there thinking that there is a potential core. Okay, potential core is there. How far it extends, potential core? 5 diameters, correct. So, potential core is there, but interference of one probe on the other, it disturbs the flow, no? It has its own wake and it should not happen. So, at the same plane you should have the 3 sensors. The best way to do is to align them having it located at equidistance from the axis. What is the idea behind that? 3 equidistant means, at least I am thinking you divide that entire surface into annular rings. So, if there is potential core truly, properties being same, at least the interference of one probe on the other is eliminated because they are sufficiently apart, right. So, you have to confirm all that thing, that means how accurately you are measuring. But later on we need that turbulence data to compare it to something else, this one, apart from the calibration problem, right. So, at equidistance is good idea, that one, this thing you have to give. And there are other ways of thinking as a good experimentalist. Probe can be put horizontal, can put perpendicular to the axis. Axis of the probe can be perpendicular to the burner axis. Okay, it senses, it should be a cross flow like thing. Okay? The hot wire should act like a, it should experience the cross flow. Main flow should be like a cross flow for that wire. Or you can have a bent L shaped, you can bring from top. So, all that thing your scholar has to think about it, how to get the best accurate results. Okay, with that now we go to the geometry of the grids here. See, either you can use wire meshes, which is defined as M is aperture opening and B is the bar size. then perforated disc you have got a hole diameter, and the distance between the hole here, this one, see, is hexagonal perforated plate, hexagonal holes, that B. So, turbulence generated depends on, critically depends on the bar size B or wire diameter, because that creates the wake. Flow passes through that, creates a wake. Behind the bar or the wire, there is a wake. So, in the wake what happens? Vortices are created. You think about the flow past block body, you know, flow past the block body, you have vortices there, and sometimes the vortices are good for us because they give us what is called the recirculation zone, and in recirculation zone there are regions where velocities are very low, and there we can put our flame to stay there stably, keeps on, they can made to reside there in the low velocity region, that is called flame stabilization, right. I am telling you whole idea of the ideas of this combustion technology in a very layman's language. You can read and get the idea and understand thoroughly. This is the beginning. You already know about it, but in the context of this turbulence, I am telling this. So here you have this D. This is the perforated. So we used the perforated plates in our case, and here this was the sleeve. We extended the burner nozzle mouth by the sleeve, and all the measurements were made here at the mouth of the sleeve, where isotropic turbulence was made available at that section. The sleeve length depends on the grid. You can have a coarser grid or finer grid. Coarser grid means the wire diameter or this gap bar size, we call it here in the case, that should be bigger, larger, right. So coarser turbulence means you will give higher turbulence intensities, and again in the measurement of turbulence there are some theories tells you that hot wire anemometer measurements will give you an accurate error of 1 to 2% if you limit your turbulence level below 14%. If you go beyond 14%, then there will be error will be there, because not only there are other contribution coming from other components, which so error analysis you have to make. So for these cases our limit is 14%. You have to read all that thing before you design. So in this case our turbulence level maximum was about 12%. We never went beyond that. So we convinced ourselves we are truly handling isotropic turbulence. This was the thing. So we have to read a lot of literature. There are excellent literature available done by the people like Jeffrey Taylor Microscale who did, then Townsend. A lot of people have done, all comes in Royal Society proceedings, series A. So turbulence is excellently covered by those people, and they are available in the literature. Okay, now this is done. Now next part of the calibration is time. I think I am telling a lot of stories. I will go quickly. I think I have come to 10 size, but later on that quickly we can pass through. So this is the profile of the velocity and temperature profile for keeping the mass flow rate constant, m dot mass flow rate of this was kept constant, and then you see fairly it will give us the, is in millimeter radius, it is flat, because we are more or less we are in the potential core. Potential core extends up to 8, it extends up to 8 millimeter, you know, up to here. 8 into 2, 16. So 19 mm diameter. We are for you. There were this one distance of 16 millimeter is quite good. Then this is a boundary layer here. You know, this is the boundary layer effect of the wall. Okay. So we have to confirm that your probe is truly in the potential core. That was another justification. And then calibration law. You know, King's law. You know, the difficulty here is the estimating the EO and C1, and half is never achieved here. You get something nearer to half as exponent, 0.45 or so if you go for this 3 constant, but there it has been improved by using extended power law, taking 3 A, B, C as the coefficients, one more term is added there. So now By calibration we mean now we have to establish the relation here between the bridge voltage E and the velocity, and the value of the coefficient should be known. In our case, one more complication is the temperature, flow temperature. So what we, in our approach, calibration approach, we wanted to establish or know the relation of temperature dependency of these ABC with the flow temperature. That was our main philosophy. So experiments were done. This is our typical calibration map. So what we did was here, this is bridge voltage versus velocity, velocity. See now, this is m dot constant, or let us take one graph. This is the triangle here. This is 500-degree high temperature flow. So the flow is varied. The flow is varied by varying the mass flow rate. So if you go along this line, you are increasing the mass flow rate by sending more and more flow. Mass flow rate is increased. So for the same temperature, easy for you to imagine the room temperature here, it is 302 Kelvin. So more flow you give, more mass flow rate you give, the velocity will increase, bridge voltage also will increase because the more cooling. Now similarly, if for the same variation of same range of mass flow rates, for the same range of mass flow rate, now if you can now vary the temperature, you get this curve you will get here. You can get this curve. This is for the, so this is for the high, this is for higher temperature, and these lines are called constant mass flow lines. Understood? This is very important graph here, because this is say low mass flow rate, this is a low, all low, this is high mass flow rates in that thing. So with the increasing temperature of the flow, bridge voltage decreases. You take any curve you say here, with increase in your mass flow rate here, see here, with increase in your mass flow rate here, the bridge voltage, velocity increases, bridge voltage increases. So for the given mass flow rate here, if the temperature is increased, this is a very, very important observation. Given mass flow rate, if the temperature is increased here, the voltage will, the bridge voltage will decrease, because cooling decreases, the delta T will become larger, and it doesn't have to, it doesn't lose much. Delta T is larger. That is, ambient is coming closer to the probe temperature. Ambient temperature is coming to the probe temperature. Delta T is reduced as far as the probe is concerned. So for the same with your action, the flow action, this is bridge output is reduced. So with this now, our idea is how to do the calibration. What we meant by calibration now. So having obtained this one now, this can be used as a calibration map. With this you should be able to deduce your calibration constant. So how that is done, let us see here. First, now electronically you can characterize this RMS value of the signal here. RMS value of the signal you can calculate here. Now from electrical voltage RMS you have to come to velocity URMS by defining the du by de, that is a calibration constant, velocity change with respect to the voltage change. So now before doing that, now you have to solve this not this one, this equation you have to solve. So calibration, you have full data as a function of velocity, how the velocity increases, your voltage will increase. But if with respect to temperature, what is the situation? Okay, if the velocity increases, now for a high temperature, for a given, that is this. Let us go to the, let us not imagine the thing. Come to this graph now. See, this is the main thing here. So for the given mass flow rate, if the flow rate for the given mass flow rate, if the temperature is increased, the velocity, the bridge voltage will decrease. So with this now, we have to now, while having got this, how will you actually get the information of flow velocity when you put the probe and report the value of the bridge voltage bridge voltage you report and temperature you report, right. So, for in the previous graph here, you have established the temperature dependency of the constant ABC. So, each curve here, for each curve here, you have to the A1, A2, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A7, 7 are there, okay, 7 values of that thing you have to establish the temperature dependency. So, having located the point here, you first calculate the bridge voltage corresponding to that. With that bridge voltage now, you go to the equation extended power law, you have to solve that one for the velocity. The temperature you evaluate ABC, for the known temperature you evaluate ABC. With that now you have the extended law equation to you, and in that equation now you have to solve for velocity. By solve it will become a quadratic equation, because your u is there, your half is there now. Then you have here bridge voltage square minus bridge voltage at that constant A is there. To that if you have it, there is a constant, then root you say as alpha. So, you have alpha square A, another one constant to alpha square plus another constant A, small a alpha square plus small b alpha plus constant, you can solve it as quadratic, and from that you can get the value of your velocity. So, that is done. So, in the calibration technique here, given the value temperature, ABC are evaluated. With that ABC, extended law is equation is written and solved for velocity. Having got the velocity now for that operating point, du by dE you can again solve looking at the your extended power law. You differentiate, you got the equation there. If you differentiate, du by dE will become, it comes in terms of B, C and root u will come there. So, velocity having known u, root u know, B and C are already known for that temperature. So, with that now du by dE is obtained, that is all. So, now you have this calibration now is very simple now. Having done this, always in 2 steps, immediately you get the velocity, and after getting the RMS value of your signal, electric signal, with du by dE you get the RMS value of velocity fluctuations, that is done there. And in order to use the practical use of this thing, suppose probe breaks now, you have the calibration, you do not have to do it again all over again there. So, for that thing what we have done is an arrangement, the so called velocity profiles obtained there, we characterize what is called as the average this one, the flow velocity average, that is called mass weighted average velocity you can calculate. Similarly, mass weighted temperature we can calculate, just the profile you have to average it out, that is all. The factor there is mass weighted, because considering the diameter, consider diameter as annular zones, okay, weighted, you give the weightage of the mass weighted average you calculate, and then there is a peak temperature is there, center point temperature. So, you can have a relation temperature point, center point temperature in terms of this mass weighted velocities like this. So, in the actual day of your measurement, you measure one center point temperature and the voltage. From center point temperature you can get your velocity from the another calibration like thing. So, with that thing now again you have to do one curve fit equation is there. So, with that now your calibration part is now over. I think you understood, it is very simple. There are 2 things are there, twice you have to handle the extended power law. One, to determine the velocity in terms of A, B, C, which are fitted with the expressions to know the temperature dependency, and the expression what our scholar used was simple thing, power expression, y equal to A into x raised to power n, simple thing. So, he had the coefficient A and n there for these constant in the extended power law. With that thing. For all the thing he used the same expression here. You can have a linear, you can do anything, but he tried that one. Looking at the correlation coefficient, he was happy with that. Okay. So, I think I will move on to the next one. Now, it is very easy. The length scale reductions we have talked a lot about it. we measure this, first thing is the lateral integral scale is very important for us. There are two scales. Isotropic turbulence tells us this is isotropic turbulence. The lateral scale is twice the transverse scale. In all the transport phenomena, you are looking at the diffusive action perpendicular to the direction of flow, something going transversely. That is very, very important. So, transverse macro scale is governed by this equation here, isotropic relation. Similarly, micro scale, this is the longitudinal and this is root 2 lambda will give you this is the lateral here. So, these relations you can use according to your literature, what they have used also you can follow that. Most of the cases, any processes going with the gradients, driven by the gradients, one would go transverse direction like this. Okay, then you got this Taylor microscale reduced from the energy spectrum. Energy spectrum you have to build from FFT, you are moving from time series to the frequency domain, and frequency domain you got the energy of the kinetic energy given between the given band of frequency delta n. You know what is the kinetic energy held in that, that is the velocity square bar. Whole thing normalized with the RMS value of the square of the RMS value will give you the ratio. So, that ratio you have to plot as a function of frequency normalized, that will give you the power spectral density function, but there is one more thing is there, the normalized ratio of kinetic energy divided by delta n will give power spectral density function. So, you can do that, and from the En, if you integrate n square En dn, that characterizes the your this microscale longitudinal, and having known microscale, dissipation rate can be calculated with these two parameters, and Kolmogorov scale is got with this equation. Yesterday you have heard I think all these relations. Then the power spectral density NPSD second is there, that is plotted as a function of frequency, and for all the 6 velocities we have used, you find that the NPSD values remain horizontal initially here like this, then they will droop down there. That means there is a transfer of energy from low wave number eddies. Low wave number means higher eddies, low frequency eddies, they are heavier, they are large eddies. The transfer of large eddies to the small scale eddies. So, if this is the shape of the curve for at the lower velocity, when the velocity they increase, see this is a, see here low 5.2 meters per second, that's are there here, black dots are here, you know, this is all the thing. So, when the velocity increases, you have a transfer of energy from larger eddy to smaller one, so you should go like this bottom. So, there is a crossover point here. Okay, it's just a total value of E and dn integral is 1. It is a normalized power spectral density curve actually. Total value is 1. So, transfer of energy from large to small is depicted by this the shape of the spectrum, the one dimensional energy spectrum. This is a very simple picture. We are only considering one component. There is no cascade of the energy sharing from one component to another one. Very simple technique. So, this is shown, and the Kolmogorov slope is very important. That is product is minus 3 by 5 by 3. That slope also falls in line with this energy change here. So, this line you have to draw and you can make it coincide. That will show next. And this is another picture, I do not want to talk much about it. Time series you had, instead of going to frequency domain, you can come to time series, you can maintain an autocorrelation with respect to time, you can do it. Yesterday we talked about that. So, if you have that autocorrelation, then you can calculate the temporal scales, temporal micro scale, temporal macro scale, you can talk in the same way as the correlation functions given by on the spatial coordinate. If you read the turbulent literature, you will see all that thing. One is temporal, this correlation, one is the spatial correlation. In spatial correlation again there are two, G function, F function. G giving you defining lateral and F defining this longitudinal, G for longitudinal, F for transverse. And similarly here this you can calculate the eddy sizes if you like from spatial the correlation coefficients, spatial correlation coefficients G or F. or temporal the autocorrelation functions to give the temporal scales like this. So these are all statistical the method of deducing the length scales, doing that. And then with that now we have come to a very quick session on defining length scales deduced from spectrum. Autocorrelation is also choice, if you like you can do it. Now we will go to quickly, we will go to the results here. So for the 3 grids what we have analyzed here, G1, G2, G3, you see here with increase in Reynolds number, the level of turbulence remains constant almost. That is a very wonderful thing. See here for one grid it is 13%, this is again 8 to 12, fairly constant it remains for the at the room temperature, this one. Now length scales almost Lx, that is the longitudinal length scale, all are given in the notes. My notes contains some of these ideas. I have given in a very simple fashion some logic, viscosity effects, eddy breakup, how the sizes change, all you can read it comfortably. And then here the Lx, that is longitudinal this scale varies like this, there is variation, small variation is there, it increases with the Reynolds number. Then so also lambda x, it increases the Reynolds number, but levels are higher, coarser the grid, you know here the G1, for instance the G1 here is a coarse, this is a G3 is a coarser here, G3, yeah, G1, G2, G3. I think I have defined in the thing the dimensions, I should give it to you. And then Kolmogorov scale here decreases with the increase in Reynolds number. Can you say why? Because your eddy breakup process is now, which is dictated by U prime, will give rise to smaller sizes. Kolmogorov scale decreases with increase in this one. And similarly, coarser the grade, finer will be the Kolmogorov. It is logically correct. Coarser means U prime is higher. U prime higher means eddy breakup is faster. There is more of these energies are going from larger to smaller and smaller and smaller. Then Kolmogorov scale decreases here. Okay. Now temperature effects, these are very simple to explain, I have given in the notes, very simple. Okay. The effect of with the given constant mass flow rate, okay, if the temperature is increased, your velocity will increase, because from continuity m dot is equal to rho a v, density decreases, therefore velocity will increase. But when velocity increases, u prime will not increase in the same proportion. U prime is dictated by along with the other effect like viscosity. So though it increases with increase in u bar, mean velocity, because of viscosity effect, it tends to increase at a smaller rate. Therefore u prime by u decreases. So the effect of intensity or effect of temperature on relative intensity is to decrease, it decreases. So this graph now is shown here that way. See the level here is, this is a 0, this is at the room temperature, this is at 500. So the intensity decreases, relative intensity decreases, but u prime increases, velocity increases, but there is a small, they do not scale together. Increase in u prime does not scale in the same way as the increase in u due to increase in mass flow rate, because there is a temperature effect opposing the small temperature via the effect of viscosity affecting the rise of the u prime value. Okay. With that now the same thing, temperature effects here, you see with increase in temperature here. So now this graph is very important for you. See this is 500 here, this is the 300 is there, Kolmogorov scale. You know, now why Kolmogorov scale increases due to rise in temperature? Why Kolmogorov scale increases for the given Reynolds number? Why Kolmogorov scale increases with increase in temperature? Again it is a attenuating effect of viscosity on the eddies here. Okay, you just see these are eddy breakup processes, viscosity opposes it. So the length scale cannot, Kolmogorov scale cannot increase, decrease to smaller levels. So the same way other things also can be. I have given some simple reasons, you can follow that. I think now this is general, you can ignore this. This is for without grid. Without grid, we all talked about isotropic. With the no grid, this is a situation we find that the orderliness of the spectrum is not good. There is no isotropy there actually. There is no isotropy. That is why it gives you such a mix up there. Okay. Now same thing, you have that Kolmogorov scale, that slope what is shown here. Now we have shown with respect to temperature. There is a small effect of temperature is there, which we can show here. You see now we are drawn along with that what is called as the Lippmann spectrum. That is a theoretical, theoretically it predicts. So the agreement is very good, but you see the effect of temperature, small effect is there here. See this here, everything coincides very well with the Lippmann spectrum, but here the deviation is more. That means all transfer of eddy from larger to smaller, larger eddy, these are larger eddy regions. From here the energy comes to the smaller eddies of high wave number. So here they tend to come inside, towards inside. What does it mean? They tend to become bigger in size slightly because of the temperature, viscosity effect. It didn't break down to smaller level. I told you no, that Kolmogorov scale increased. Size increasing means they come from high end to low wave numbers. So that is beautifully seen here 500 degree. From whom to the 200 degree centigrade shift caused the shift of the small eddies to come to the slightly larger eddy. Not very much, only in that range here. That is called as the inertial subrange, they call it. It came there. This is the classical theory of isotopic turbulence. If you read it, it's not at all difficult. In the beginning you may look a little tougher, but once you make friendly with that topic, energy sharing from larger to smaller, how they fluctuate, and then the shape of this spectrum, you will be comfortable if you have to manage with turbulence. Don't be afraid of it, turbulence. Okay. Now this is the same thing, we show how the correlation becomes better. The transfer of energy I told you, the Kolmogorov becoming stronger, they do not become smaller eddies, stronger, I should not say stronger, Kolmogorov scales are stronger, highest dissipative eddies actually. They tend to become lazy because they become bigger. They lose their mixing abilities. I mean not, they do the best, but slightly they become heavier, lazier, slightly lazier they become. So when I consider the grid 2 and 3, they are the finer grids compared to G1. So agreement of this Lippmann's spectrum was better. You see here for G2, G3 is better. The line you see here, see this is better. Nicely they follow for velocity greater than 20. For velocity greater than 20 meters per second, the best agreement is there for the relatively less coarser grid, I would say. Coarsest grid, the deviation is more because Kolmogorov become larger, tend to become larger. They try to hold more energy and they don't get smaller and smaller, driven by the eddy breakup process dictated by the Taylor microscale. And the last very revealing information is this, the modeling. What's all you talking about small scale and the large scale here? The small scale, Kolmogorov dissipative scales, the latest picture is here given by the Tanakese. He says they are extended in the form of the tubes here. The diameter of this is called vortex tubes. The small eddies they spin there. So such spinning there, they reside in the form of a tube like this. They are stretched by the over the space distance called lambda Taylor microscale. And such a bundle of these tubes are held in the framework of the larger eddies. It's like a football, larger eddy. Inside you have smaller eddies, and it makes a coherent structure of, we call it, of high or fine scale turbulence. People talk as fine scale turbulence for a worst situation, high turbulence, because eddies become smaller and smaller and there is more dissipation and more mixing. So they call it a fine scale turbulence dictated by the size of the Kolmogorov scale. That is eta. The eta. So this picture here reveals very interesting there. Eta by L now gets relation to REL, turbulence Reynolds number. So if you read that one page literature, this by this one Tanakese and the earlier version, you get all this thing, and very useful, because I told you the story about IC engine, no? Piston speed, diameter will give you REL, okay, U prime into L, diameter means L into this one, REL is known to you, and then L is known to you. So for eta by L gives you in relation directly you can tell you what is the story of dissipative scales in engine cylinders there. Okay. Then the law is now it is isotropic gives you eta by L scales as 1.342 into REL raised to power minus 3 by 4. That constant comes out due to your measurements. Why it is minus 3 by 4? Dictated by theory. So we do experiments carefully, and you do the curve fit, we get the constant, and other engine developer will use that constant and he will do imaginations to improve his engine. Okay, that is the story of turbulence, and I think I end here. I am late by 15. We started late, 15 minutes. 10 minutes more I have taken. 10 minutes more. You got the idea now? I have driven you through the turbulence course, turbulence concepts, maybe in a crude way, but it could be the beginning, and you can take to more reading, understand. I will give you the best references for you. Okay, if you want, you can do email or something, all the things. So any doubt? You have? Any doubt? I can answer this, because this is a very difficult subject, but it can be made to look simpler by having a correct way of telling the right results, but you have to understand it better. That will take some time, but no difficulty. But the model is very simple. Eta by L is a very nice concept. That's called as a fraction of the volume held by these eddies, eta by L. Because earlier they thought the stretching takes place in sheet of dimension L. The dimension L sheet into thickness has a volume, what is given by length into thickness, L square eta. That divided by your this one, the volume of your L cube. So n L square by L cube, that is n by L, is called the fraction of the volume fraction of these dissipated eddy held by this coherent structure eddy. Because first eddy gets produced. See, when you pass the flow through perforated disc, the flow is broken into smaller jets. The large eddies are generated. They don't keep quiet because of the fluctuations here. The eddies are broken, eddy breaker processes. They give rise to smaller one. And how much volume of the smaller depends on the agitation, that RE, Reynolds number, right? And some nice models are there all with the scaling, and you get that idea. Application you can make it more interesting, because that is the last part of it, but you have to struggle to get those good coefficients, all that thing by experiments. Okay, I think I have given the answer also to your some doubts. So if anything is there, I can tell you. Senthil, okay? Time you lost 25 minutes. We started late 15 minutes. So 25 minutes 15, 20 minutes, 10 minutes more. All right. Any doubt? Quick. The experimentation, you can ask me doubts. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sheikh.
Okay, nice. There is a man. Okay. Come here. Go to the. This is a hard work for the organizers, and all right.